I teach psychology for TCC Connect. We also have Professor Tim Park, who is teaches business for us. And we have Amy, I believe, still from Proctorio. Amy, you still there?
I am still here, but Calvin's here as well. He's going to be running this session.
Okay, Calvin, thank you very much. We're going to let him go ahead and get started, and then Tim and I will pick up in the end. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and Tim and I will do our best to answer those.
Yeah, and let me just answer one more question. Hey, Martha, you do not have to use percentages. If you want to use points, that's fine. And if you have questions about how to set that all up, you can contact myself.
I'll also have some resources here towards the end.
There's plenty of resources in
that you can contact. You just need to have a column set up. Blackboard will do the percentage for you. You just need the column set up to where it shows the percent. And we'll show you how to do that towards the end. Tim's going to go through that as well.
Okay.
So Calvin, you can take it away.
Sounds like an old commercial. Calvin, take me away.
Calvin, I think you might be muted.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Wonderful. So yeah, so today we're going to go over adding Proctorio to your Blackboard course, and pretty much a very high level, showing the settings, the gradebook, whole 9 yards. To start, the first thing you will need is to make sure you're utilizing the Google Chrome browser. Once you're within the Chrome browser, the next thing you're going to want to do is get the Secure Exam Proctor tool added to your course. As a best practice, we recommend having it in the highest content menu. Mine is called Content, but instructors may have it in their syllabus or where their tests and exams are located. To add this link, I'm going to go to your Tools menu, and it should populate right here. If you don't see it on this board for your tools, just go into More Tools. It'll populate in this one. Once you see it, just go ahead and click on it. And then you're going to just rename it exactly how you see it listed up here. Secure Exam Proctor. Capital S, capital E, capital P.
What?
It will need to be set to view for students. Students will need to see it, and I'll show you why in just a brief moment. We won't track the number of views, and there's no date ranges added here. Once you have that, just go ahead and submit. Since I already have it added, I'm just going to hit cancel. Then the next step will be to install our Chrome extension. The Chrome extension is this little shield icon I have in the right-hand corner. To install it, you're just going to click this link, Secure Exam Proctor. Let me briefly disable mine so you'll see exactly what it does. Once you click on it, you'll see something similar to this menu in a moment. Taking you to getproctorio.com right under step 2. If you're not using Chrome yet at this point, then step number 1 will just be to install Google Chrome. From there, just click the link, getproctorio.com. One more time under step 2, click here. And then you'll just simply add to Chrome. Mine says remove because I have it enabled, but all you'll need to do is just add to Chrome. Once you do have it downloaded, it's going to populate as that shield icon, this gray shield in the upper right-hand corner. For some reason you do not see it in your extension menu, just click this puzzle piece and just pin it. Chrome allows you to pin certain extension icons in case you want to see some and not others. Once you do have it installed in your back onto your Blackboard course, if you click the shield, it also acts as an avenue to support. So you have live chat and help and support center for faculty and students alike. And now I'm going to go back to content. And now we'll add Proctorio to a quiz. I'm going to create a new quiz. However, you can add it to existing quizzes as long as no students have taken them yet. Proctorio only can be added to quizzes that have no attempts in the gradebook yet. I'll go to assessments and go to test. And this will function the same exact way as normal, just through Blackboard. You create a quiz or a test, give it a title. Your questions are, again, same as normal. So whenever you're creating a question, all that's the same. I'm going to skip it for now, so we can get to the actual Proctorio settings themselves. And then from here, this should look fairly familiar. You're going to have the same options as normal within Blackboard. You want to make the link available, number of attempts, all that's the same. Proctorio will require a time limit. The time limit can be anything up to 8 hours, but we do require just a time limit there. For security purposes, we're not recording forever. And then all the way at the very, very bottom, you're going to see remote proctoring, Proctorio settings right here. Once you check that box, at the top, you're going to see saved profiles. I'll touch on what those are in just a brief moment. But I kind of want to go over briefly at these Proctorio exam settings here. You'll also notice there's this blue question mark. When I open up the exam settings, you're going to see this blue question mark just about everywhere. So when I hover over any of these settings, there's that blue question mark in the right-hand corner. Any and all settings here. What that does, if you're ever curious as to what the setting may do, you click on it, it'll take you to our Help and Support Center and open a link on that particular setting. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the recording, the lockdown options, and the verification options, all one by one, just to ensure that all these settings do get touched base on. Starting at the top, these are your recording options. Essentially, this is going to record the content throughout the entire duration of the exam and display this within the Proctorio Gradebook for further review. We offer record video, which is going to record the webcam feed throughout the duration of the exam. Record audio, record any noise throughout the microphone throughout the entire duration of the exam, including white noises. Record screen is going to do exactly what you're seeing right now, and I'm sharing my screen, and prompt the test takers to share their screen and get a clear, crisp screen recording. Record web traffic is a very unique setting. If, say, you do offer maybe open note quiz, and you want to just have the students cite their work where they went during the exam, record web traffic will track any URLs and websites they go to throughout the duration of the exam and give you a report you can further review as well. And then record room. This will prompt the test taker to do a 360-degree panorama of their testing environment. The options we offer are scan at start, which will scan just once at the beginning of the exam, or intelligent scan, which will scan once at the beginning and also throughout the exam. We've seen instructors get very creative with this setting, as if there's additional material you'd like them to show you, such as maybe their notes, you want them to show your desk, anything like that. We've seen instructors added in the instructions for the exam, and then test takers will scan those areas as well. With this setting specifically, we do recommend adding an extra minute or two to the exam, just because it does use their exam time when doing these scans. Whenever you do select a
sorry
setting,
to interrupt. I have one quick question. I noticed with like the web traffic recording, I mean, my web traffic is as boring as could be. Here's 1,000 cat videos, but isn't that a huge privacy issue? I've meant to dab on it the last time in the first session, but I'm just seeing that could be a potential issue with recording web traffic, especially if it's a student's personal device. I just wouldn't want there to be a huge can of worms open, so to speak.
Yeah, not at all. All of these recording options only fire and are utilized during an exam. So it's not recording unless they're taking a quiz.
Okay, so it's not like doing a cumulative web history
No.
or something like that. So, okay, yeah, I get during an exam, but I was like, oh, that could be very, very problematic.
No, it's only during the exam. All of these settings only turn on during the exam. The moment the exam ends, they all shut off.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Of course. And to toggle on any of these settings, you just have to click them and they'll populate in blue. I only have it over at the beginning, but once you click them in blue, they're on. If they're this light gray, they're not enabled. So I have these or enabled here. Scrolling down from here, we have our lockdown options. Essentially, these lockdown options are our lockdown browser, if you will. This is how you're able to ensure the test takers do not navigate out of Blackboard and have to stay within that testing session. The first one we have here is force full screen. What this does, it puts the exam in full screen, meaning test takers cannot navigate away or open any outside resources whatsoever. There's a few sub options here as well when you select it. Essentially, these are all timed options. So even though the test taker is in full screen, if maybe, which can happen with students, if they don't turn off the notifications or a pop-up shows up on their screen. These first two options, lenient and moderate, give them 30 seconds or 15 seconds to close that pop-up and return to the exam. We do recommend these two for that reasoning, as severe will immediately remove the students. So for more high stakes exams, we'll see severe, but our typical recommendation is lenient or moderate. Whenever selecting any of these force full screen options, the next three settings will turn on by default, such as just next to it is only one screen. Only one screen is a setting I recommend having on every single exam, as if the student is someone like myself that has multiple monitors, it will require them to disable all but one. No new tabs is just that. Students will not be able to open any new tabs at all throughout the duration of the exam. Close open tabs is very unique as well, as it will close any tabs the test taker has open prior to entering the exam. Another really cool feature this setting offers is once the exam is completed, the test taker's tabs will reopen. So once they're out of the exam and it's submitted, those tabs will reopen for them, so they don't lose anything. Disable printing and disable clipboard work in conjuncture, as this is how we're able to protect your exam content. So with disable printing, nothing can be printed off or taken from the exam. In disable clipboard, nothing can be taken into the exam or out of it. So with clipboard, they can have something copied that they're going to paste into an essay type question. If they try to paste or anything like that, it just says clipboard disabled. Disable extensions you won't see on your end. This is just one of our demo settings that we're still testing out. You won't see it on your end. This is just one on our test instance. Block downloads will not allow any downloading of any materials throughout the exam. With this setting enabled, if students attempt to download, they will be kicked out of the exam. Clear cache removes any trace of the exam after it's been completed. Disable right-click disables any and all of these right-click functionalities here. So they won't be able to print, cast, or anything like that. And then here at the bottom, we have our re-entry options. A couple different options here to choose from. Essentially what re-entry is if the test taker gets kicked out of the exam for any reason, whether that's because the computer died, the dog ate the internet cord, whatever it may be, these options will allow the test taker to resume that attempt. Now, while the student is kicked out of the exam, the timer continues to run. So they don't have their timer stopped. You can look up notes and then come back. It continues to run, but this is how they're able to resume that attempt from where they left off. This first one, allow re-entry. This is what's recommended for first-time users, practice exams, maybe quizzes not worth very many points, as it'll allow the test taker to resume the exam at their own will, again, as long as there's time remaining. Re-entry with agent is one we see on kind of more high-stakes exams. As if the student does get removed, they have to come to Proctorio's 24/7 support to be let back in. Then lastly, no reentry will not allow the test taker to resume the exam for any reason. It will be up to the instructor's discretion to give them a second attempt. We have these verification options down here. I believe as of right now, TCCD is not utilizing these. So I'm not going to go over them right now, but if there's anyone that wants to learn more about them, I'm happy to schedule additional time. But for now, I'll just close those since we're not using those at this time. And then at the very bottom, we have our in-quiz tools. The first one here is a scientific calculator. We also offer a basic calculator. Essentially, test takers can utilize this on screen while they're taking the exam. So it's on screen while they're taking the exam in Blackboard. They can do any calculations they need to. Then we also have a whiteboard here. It's entirely on screen, but it's student facing. So they're not going to be able to use the whiteboard and submit it with a question. However, if you're utilizing the record screen, you'll be able to see anything they do on the whiteboard if they're trying to show their work. And I'll say these are the settings that you would like to use. You want to use these, and you're going to use them on every single exam. Once you select them the first time, it's something like this. At the very bottom here, you're going to see Create New Profile. Essentially, you can select the settings you like once, create a new profile, and this profile will copy and follow you throughout all of your quizzes or exams with Proctorio. These profiles populate right here at the top, just below when you turn on Proctorio the first time. So right here, Save Profiles. You essentially can have just about unlimited saved profiles. And as you click on them, you'll see them change. This one with a little ribbon icon, that's my default profile. So anytime I turn on Proctorio, this one is the one that's chosen by default. Once one student takes an exam with Proctorio, these settings do lock on. So they will lock, they will not be able to be changed after one student's taken them. And that is to not only ensure that it's an even playing field for all students, but also the Proctorio Gradebook I'm going to go over in a moment. If you're changing something like record video or force full screen, it's really going to alter the suspicion levels for those test takers. I'll kind of pause there for a moment. I didn't see any chats. The security exam proctor is off my student view. If the security exam proctor link is not showing up, it may be set to hidden. Let me submit this and I'll go over that really quick. Give me just a moment. Another thing you will notice whenever you add Proctorio to a Blackboard test, it will have remotely proctored in parentheses in the title. So that is by default. Do not be alarmed when you see remotely proctored.
Calvin, we have a question in the chat from Professor Anderson about the lockdown option.
Sure.
Professor Anderson, if you could unmute your microphone, feel free to ask your question.
Thank you. Last semester I taught a stats course, and in my math lab there's a app that's called StatCrunch that allows the students to do their work while they're in the test, and Proctorio would always close it. So I'm just interested in what's the correct lockdown option to allow them to use pop-ups that are like within the software.
Sure, yeah. So if you're setting up an exam in My Labs and utilizing Verify Login, they will not be able to use StatCrunch. If you want them to utilize StatCrunch, what you need to set up, and let me get to it, sorry. Of course not. Let me hit cancel and go back in, sorry about that. What you'll need to do, trying to get to a quiz really quick. You won't be able to utilize Verify Login. Essentially what you can do though is set the exam up to where there's one question that links out to My Labs, and then the test takers can, you want to set the exam up to where it links out to My Labs, but you will not want to use verified login. You want to keep that off and allow new tabs and keep off full screen. So these two settings are not selected, but everything else can still be. Then they'll be able to utilize My Labs, StatCrunch, everything, and ensure that you have screen recording and web traffic on. You'll be able to see everything the students are doing.
Oh, okay, perfect.
We have a guide, I believe I've sent it out, that kind of walks over that in more detail as well. We'll resend it after this meeting to make sure you do have it.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Scott, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
It has happened rarely, but it does happen that sometimes when students are trying to access the exam, it asks them to write the password. So why does that happen?
Yeah, so Proctorio sets the password on the exam. If students are ever asked for a password, most of the time they're either not within the Chrome browser or they do not have our Chrome extension here. They're usually missing one or the other. If students ever contact use the instructor, any instructor saying they're being asked for a password, have them contact Proctorio support. They can do so just by clicking the shield icon, starting a live chat, or going directly to our website.
All right. Thank you.
Proctorio.com/support. We have a live chat option from there as well.
We also have another chat from Professor Russell, a message in the chat for a question when.
Sure.
Okay.
Secure exam.
This is Natalie Russell. So on the Secure Exam Proctor, previously up to this summer, I always, put it in the course, and I would tell students before each exam, click on that to make sure everything was up to date with the extension and all that, because it did seem like something would happen. I don't know what's happening on the back end where they would get asked for a password, but as long as I had them go through, before the test and do that, it would eliminate all those issues. But I noticed starting this summer, even though I say make available on the Secure Exam Proctor, when I go into student view, it is not there.
Interesting. And as an instructor, it's where it normally is, but just on the student side, you're not seeing it.
Exactly. Yes. And I actually wasn't aware that the students were not seeing it, but another instructor let me know that his students weren't seeing it. And so he investigated and found some stuff online from another school that said that it was not showing up in student view. So I don't know if that's a Blackboard issue.
It might be set up for your specific instance of Blackboard. Like ours, it'll show up for us, but other either newer or older versions, it hides itself from the student.
Okay.
That's normal. It's not to be alarmed. As long as the student is still able to click the exam and not ask for a password, it should work just fine. But
so instead of telling, because I used to have like a little note in there, click on this little thing that says Secure Exam Proctor. Instead, it would just be go to that getproctorio.com or whatever to make sure everything was up to date.
Yep, exactly. If they go to getproctorio.com, they should see something like this if everything's functioning properly.
Yes.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, so I'll just have them do that instead. Thank you very much.
Of course.
We also have a question from Martha Fielder, Professor Fielder. If you could unmute your microphone.
Thank you. I always have set it up each and every time for each exam. Is that still correct to do that, or don't have to do that, or?
Are you asking about what TCC's policy is on how many
well,
assessments
what is do you just set up Proctorio once, or I have 4 exams, and so for each exam I would always go through all this that we're going through about setting it up for that test. Is that necessary?
You can go into each, once you set up your preferred settings on the first exam, you should be able to click on for all subsequent exams that you go in and set up Proctorio for. You should be able to go into Proctorio and just click on the profile that says your saved settings, because you've already set it up once. So you
Okay.
should not have to set it up every single time. You should be able to click on the little profile that as long as you saved it.
Okay. And if you happen not to save it, then yes, you do have to go through all this and set it up
Correct.
each
A lot
time.
of-
Okay.
It's a lot
Alright.
easier to save.
And also, if you're asking, do I have to do this for each major test? Use Proctorio.
Okay.
That is up to you.
Oh, really?
I think that it's a smart thing to do, but I believe, and everybody else, Natalie, Allegra, correct me if I'm wrong, but TCC Connect expects at least one test to have Proctorio, or every major test to have Proctorio, if applicable.
Okay. And you said we didn't have to have them verify their identity when we were going, or was that the other class before this? You don't have to have them show their ID or whatever.
I think that kind of defeats the purpose, but Natalie, do you have any, as a past chair, any
So
put on that?
this is okay. So we're not supposed to use the auto ID verification just because of, the issues that the Vice Presidents of Academic Affairs outlined last week. But so this is what I think I'm going to do. Even though I'm not using the auto ID, I'm just going to ask students, when you get in and you do your room scan, before you begin answering questions, just take your ID, driver's license, TC student ID, hold it up to the webcam, for a few seconds so I can see it. I only do that on my first exam because once I've seen that and seen them, then I know who they are, right, for the rest of the class. But that's my thought, because I
Okay.
had previously used the auto ID. So since that's not an option, that was kind of what I was thinking was a workaround.
Okay. Thank
I don't
you.
know.
And that brings up another point that I want to show to everybody. Natalie uses the scan the room option, and I've toyed around with that, and I kind of think it takes some time. So what I do is, show me your ID, and then I set the other parameters to make sure that they're, everything else is locked down, they're not leaving, and all that kind of good stuff. But that's personal preference, and you can change it. I mean, you could say at the first time I want to see everything around you, and the second time I don't care. So it kind of depends on what you think the best way to run your classroom. So that's up to you.
Yeah, and I did have, it wasn't my class, I did have a faculty member this summer. This was very interesting. She, the student, which the instructor was recording audio and video, but the student was reading the question out loud to someone off camera, and the person was Googling and feeding them back the answer. So, so there is some benefit to recording the audio.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Are there any other questions for Calvin?
Oh, that's even a better. Calvin, can you show us the student view of any of these things?
I can't here since I don't have an exam set up, unfortunately, right now. I can go over the Proctorio Gradebook, what it looks like after it's been completed.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that unless we have any other questions at the moment.
Okay. Let's go to another course. You can do audio, yes. And I'll show you how that is all recorded here. So once you want to review the exam the test takers have taken, you just want to go to your course and then go to Grade Center and Full Grade Center here.
Let me interrupt just 1 second.
No worries.
Yes, you can record audio and video, and the reason you might want to do that is if someone's off to the left-hand side and the person is reading off the questions and the other person's Googling it, that's the reason why you want to record the audio to keep people from doing that.
Yep. So to get to the Proctorio Gradebook, you'll go into Full Grade Center, then you just want to locate which exam you'd like to review. Select this little chevron icon next to the title. And near the top, you'll see View Proctorio Gradebook. That is, just select the little chevron next to the title, then View Proctorio Gradebook. You'll also see it within each student's attempt. It's just a little smaller. So a couple different ways to get to the Proctorio Gradebook. Once you select it, it'll then begin to populate all of the attempts here for this particular quiz or test. So from here, for the View Proctorio Gradebook, there's kind of two sides to it. The first side will consist of these Proctorio tabs here at the top. Touch on each and all of those and what they specifically do. Then also information for the actual attempts. So let me zoom out so that we can see it all and I don't have to try to do this. I'm sorry. Normally you can see all the tabs, but you may notice it says submission time is kind of cut off. So let me just go over. So it consists of this information here: the test taker's name, when they submitted, the attempt number in case they have multiple, their score. We pull the score directly from Blackboard, so you're not grading anything twice. Any annotations, abnormalities, or their actual suspicion level. Now, the suspicion level is very customizable depending on what exam type you're giving. To do so, you'll want to go into this Proctorio Settings tab here. We have a few preset behavior settings here to choose from. In addition, we also have custom. Custom essentially allows you to toggle these higher and lower depending on what you find suspicious, whether that's if the student's navigating away, if they're looking away, or if you want to flag for audio. You can just click and drag wherever you'd like it to flag for. Unlike the actual Proctorio settings, this can be changed at any time. So if you are going through or viewing it, maybe had navigating away in the highest red bar that you're flagging for, and you notice everyone's at 100% suspicion, but it's an open resource exam. You can come in here, toggle that down, then actually just review the students that are potentially doing something they're not supposed to. Near the bottom, we also have these abnormalities, whether it's computer, environmental, or technical here at the very bottom. Essentially, these abnormalities are going to tell you what one student did differently than the rest of the class. Whether that's this one student navigated away more, they're typing, copying and pasting, or continuously adjusted their browser looking for answers. You'll be able to turn these on and off, just depending on what you deem suspicious. Here at the bottom, we consistently see exam collusion utilized a lot. It's the very last one. This one's very unique as it'll essentially tell you when two students take the exam at the same time and on the same network. So if they are colluding together, you'll be able to verify that. You'll see this icon just next to their attempts, and it'll basically tell you need to review these two as they may have been taking the exam together. Just to the right of these options, we also have the Proctorio Map. Essentially, the map will give you a general idea as to where they were located when they took the exam. It's based on IP address, so it's not an exact location, but general vicinity. This can be utilized in whether you just want to see maybe you have a larger distance education program. You're like, where are my students testing from? Or if you have a student in class one day and then you see they took the exam from Europe an hour later, you probably notice it was not him or her. Next to the map, we have our display options. These display options, starting at the bottom, we have our FERPA controls. So if maybe you do need to show this gradebook to a colleague, but you want to hide the student's identity, you can, of course, toggle those off and populate that gradebook and show them. Then we also have a Gradebook Tour here. As a side note, the first time you ever open a Proctorio gradebook, this tour is going to start automatically. It's 2.5, 3 minutes long. It's going over everything I'm touching on right now. We also have this infinite PDF button here. I'm going to go into more detail with what this does, but it is also very useful and unique. Then on the far right hand side, here are export options. This is where you can essentially pull and export of the entire gradebook. So if you want to pull the entire class all into one report, you have the absolute ability to do so. Then also download their ID images if that's something you're utilizing under the verification options. And since the IDs can contain personal information, whenever downloading those, it will watermark it with your name and timestamp. Now we'll go ahead and go back to the gradebook, and we'll go to this first high suspicious attempt. Now, of course, first things you're going to notice is I have my video recording here, which goes in conjunction with the screen recordings on the right-hand side. I then have all of these Proctorio icons. And each of those I will touch on in their specific functionality. Of course, you have the ability to simply just play the entire duration of the exam, however, that can be extremely time-consuming. What we typically recommend is going in and looking for these yellow and red flags you just told Proctorio to flag for, such as over here. If you're ever curious, what are they being flagged for at this exact moment? This first Proctorio icon is our incident log. Any and all flags will be listed here. Such as at this point, it looked like I was navigating away and my audio levels changed. That's what I told Proctorio to flag for navigating away in audio levels. And that's exactly what it did. Just below that, if you're utilizing the room scan functionality, that's where that can be reviewed, this little circle with an arrow. I did not have it on this exam, however, that is where you can review that and catch the student if they have a second person in the room. This is how you get back to the screen recording. It's just a monitor with a camera in the middle. This world icon, that's their geolocation. It is based on IP address, so it's not an exact location, but general vicinity. And then as I mentioned in the display options, we have an infinite PDF option. So say when you're going through checking the recording, one of the students just did not follow your instructions whatsoever. They're constantly either cheating, looking up answers, had a second person in the room. This book icon here will allow you to make essentially an annotation or a note from the instructor's perspective. So whether in this case, student was singing a song. You can go in with the infinite PDF, flag it depending on the suspicion level. This one green, and make as many annotations as you need. Once you go through and you finish the review, if say, again, the student did not follow your instructions, this very last icon is our PDF export option. From here, you have the ability to turn on your professor annotations and the incident log. Maybe you want to pull every flag and then generate a PDF as to what this test taker did throughout the duration of the exam. Down here a little further, actually my apologies, this ID icon, that's where you can review the identification if you are utilizing it. You have the ability to go in and just click this ID icon and it will populate that ID if you are utilizing that verification option. And also, as you go through the gradebook, you're going to see these learn more links located all throughout. Essentially, it's going to open up a link on wherever you find it. In this case, it's next to the attempt ended message. You learn more about how the attempt ended and different ways it can end. I want to go into this detail as well down here. So speaking of the attempt ended message, if say the student does get removed from the exam, they get kicked out, it's going to tell you why right here. So in this case, I did not get kicked out. The attempt ended when I submitted the exam. It was all good, not a problem there. If I exit full screen, I try to download something like that that gets me kicked out, to be able to verify that right here. Web traffic index, if you want to see which websites they visited, they just cite their work, you can pull that right here. This will also allow you to download as a CSV file also. The abnormality here, I was looking away more, that's why it's flagging me. I turned on head and eye movement as one of the abnormalities. So I looked away more than the rest of the class, raised my suspicion level, and it's telling you that right here. And then at the very bottom, we offer a computer performance index. Essentially, we just give you a general overview of how the test taker's device and internet performed. In this case, it was overall decent. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great, but my internet was pretty good, so I was able to complete the exam. You can select show details here, or just click anywhere in this box. And it'll essentially give you additional information on their internet, their hardware, and then their video here. And Again, this is a lot of information to take in when you're first going through the Proctorio Gradebook. So I would definitely recommend, opening these Learn More links. They're located just about everywhere. If you're ever curious on one of these topics, it'll take you to our Help and Support Center on what that does. And then you can also actually search here. So if there's something else you want to look for, whether it's one of the settings, anything, this Help and Support Center is very useful. At the bottom left-hand corner, whenever you're within this page, there's a live chat option as well for you to talk to our support in case you have any other questions.
If there are not any other questions, I'm going to go ahead. We've got about 15 minutes to present a few other resources and show you an example of how to set up your gradebook so that our dual credit high schools and our deans and department chairs can have access to dual credit students' percentage grades and letter grades. I'm Sherry Mata. I teach psychology for TCC Connect, and I'm going to share a little PowerPoint real quick. And then my partner, Professor Park, will be presenting some information as well.
Sherry, I'm sorry, this is Natalie. I just got a message to make sure and let you and Tim know that they wanted us to leave the session at least by 10:55 to get to that 11 o'clock session since we have visiting speakers coming in. So I'm so sorry you have very few minutes, but I wonder if you could also share your presentation if you don't get through everything.
I just
awesome.
I just shared my presentation, which includes resources to our instructional designers. It has their email. It also has
perfect.
It shows a link in Blackboard. It actually says training now. So
perfect.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Tim go ahead, and if anybody needs additional information, just go ahead and review that PowerPoint that I just uploaded. And also don't forget to sign in the sign-in sheet on the link that Allegra posted earlier. So Tim, I'm going to let you go ahead and do your section.
Okay. Let's see here. Can everybody see Sherry's smiling face on that page? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. And let me get back to it. All right. There are three things I want to make sure that you guys understand are important for our dual credit students. And those three things are a letter grade, a percentage grade, and whether you use points or however you give a grade for your class, which could be three different things. And it's really simple to set up your grade center to do that. Now, the nice thing about the grade center that people, and it took me a year before I figured this out, there's actually a column that says need grades. If there's anything you haven't done, you can go back to this needs grade and you can sort it by date and everything else. So that's one thing that took me a year to figure out. I was always doing everything in the full grade center, which you can move these columns around however you want to. And instead of taking time to do that, I'm going to point you to the content collection. I'm sorry, the training. And I think that everything you're going to need to know is here, including, it looks like, what do you know? Proctorio, faculty guide, instructor proctoring setup, all that kind of good stuff. But let's go back to where I was. And let's work on adding those three columns. The problem is, since I don't have any students in this class, I can't show you what they're going to look like, but at least I can show you how to put them together. There is really a simple way to do a total column, and you can set this total column up to be anything. So the first column that I have is always a letter, and you can use this as a running total, which I would. I don't usually show this to my students, and I just click no, and then hit submit. I have to name it and a lot of kind of good stuff. But this will give you an actual letter grade on a rolling as students complete assignments, so you can see where they're at as far as a grade, and only you can see it. Now you could set this up as the letter grade for the student, but I do all of my grades as points. And now I'm kind of rethinking, maybe I don't want to do it that way. I might want to do it this way, which is a second way of setting this up. Let me go and show you why this is the second way of using a weighted column might make more sense. A weighted column will let you, and let's just put a letter grade out there, it'll let you set up a weighted percentage for particular assignments. And you see these categories here. I don't know what BSI is. That's something that probably Sherry put together. But when you click on these categories, assignments, there are a bunch of different assignments here. And these could be assignments that are weighted, or that are having a point assessment of 5 points, 10 points, 100 points, 1,000,000 points. Doesn't matter. And that's the reason why it makes a lot of sense to me, is because now I can say, hey, for all the assignments, I'm going to click on this little arrow here, bottom one, and I'm going to say all the assignments that are in the class are worth 60% of all the grades. And then if you click on test, there's an orientation, a midterm, and a final. All right, well, I want to add that to this percentage, and I want to say these are worth 40%. Now, again, no matter what the points are for these tests, it's going to say, let's just say there's 100 points total. So it's going to say, all right, 40% of that's 40 points, and we're going to calculate your grade based on the percentage of the total points that are available, or score, however you set it up. And we're going to give you a grade based upon this percentage. The beauty is, like I've said, it doesn't matter how you slice and dice all the point availabilities. Some tests could be worth 60 or 25. It doesn't really matter. It gives you a grade based upon the percentages that you align with these particular categories. So you have to have some forethought and say, well, this category, these assignments as a group are going to be worth 60% of the grade. And these tests as a group are going to be 40%, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. But this way, it's a really quick and easy way to set up your grades.
Yes, Tim, if you could scroll up just, you're actually right there. If you could go back one, I just wanted to mention that I actually do show my students. I will set up my column. The primary is the percentage. The secondary is the letter.
Oh yeah, thanks for bringing that out. Yeah.
One column,
so I can go percentage and I can go letter, and it will actually show a percentage and a letter grade to the right-hand side of that.
Yeah.
When you export these, you lose the letter grade. You're just going to get the percentage, whatever's in the primary display. But the students can see the secondary display. Thank you, Sherry.
Yes, that way they know how they're doing. If they're not doing so well, they know they need to step it up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I can show two primary or two different grades.
You can actually add a column if you go to create a calculated column. You can show two. You can show one column, the letter, another column would show the percentage. So you could do it that way as well. There's lots of ways you could do it.
Yeah, so it's visible, they can see it, but you designate one column as, let's see if I can do it.
And guys, I have the terrible job of being the timekeeper, so I'm going to have to stop the session so that everybody can get to the 11 o'clock. But everybody did a fantastic job. I learned very much from all of you. What I wonder is if people have questions, if Sherry and Tim and Calvin and Amy, if they later put it in, this chat should remain available. So, and in other words, if they have questions, can they put them in the chat and y'all would be willing to respond to those
Absolutely.
at some later time? Okay.
See you
Awesome.
on the next session.
Yeah, y'all did a great job. And so let's, so that I don't get in trouble for being a bad timekeeper, let's all shift to the 11 o'clock session.
Thanks,
All right,
Matt.
take care, everybody. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.